The ratio of your acrylic all depends on the amount of liquid that you hold in your brush. So as you can see, as I dip my brush in, have a look how thick my brush is on the side. It's holding all of the monomer or the acrylic liquid. That's what it's designed to do with the Kolinsky hairs. As you can see, once I wipe my brush out, it's a lot more thin. It's not going to expand. When I dip in and draw in the liquid, you can see how much it absorbs, and all that liquid is sitting in the belly of the brush. So to pick up different size beads, you have to dip the brush into the monomer, drag it out, and then dig to the appropriate size bead that you would like. So if you want a medium-sized brush, drag it halfway, tap, and then just putting my brush on a 45-degree angle, flipping over so the liquid disperses to the other side, and then nudge, nudge, nudge into the powder. Okay, so let's go in reverse. I'm going to start by picking up a small bead. So dip the brush all the way into the liquid, wipe all the way out, and then tap. Nudge, nudge, nudge. I've just squeezed out all of the liquid to get a baby bead. So once again, medium bead, drag half of the monomer out, and dig, 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 and press. After you have picked up your first bead, give the powder another tap so that you've got a nice smooth surface to pick up another clean bead. So going in again, picking up a medium bead, wiping out the brush halfway, flipping your brush, and dig, dig, dig. This will ensure you get a medium bead. And lastly, a large bead. Place your brush in all the way into the liquid, just tap without wiping out, and you'll see you'll get a much larger bead because you haven't really removed much of the liquid from your brush. Make sure that you wipe your brush from side to side to get all of that acrylic out. Otherwise, if it dries, it's going to turn into rock and it will wreck your brush. As you can see, I've got a large bead, a medium size, and a small bead. And that's all just by the amount of liquid that I have wiped out of my brush. Now, you can see that this bead is dripping right off my brush. That is obviously way too wet, and you definitely don't want that because you're not going to have any product control for when you start to place acrylic onto a natural nail. Now, a bead that might be way too dry, you're going to see white powder. You see all around the edge of the pearl? That means it's way too dry. It's going to cause breakdown issues. You're going to place it down. It's almost not going to come off the brush and almost want to fall off and dry before you even place it on the nail. You need the perfect ratio so that once you press and place your bead down, those little molecules are going to go and push and I guess cling and absorb onto that nail plate. It's all about product control. Now this time I'm showing you how to do, I guess, a drag effect. So you can drag it across your powder like sand and go 1, 2, 3. I don't particularly like this technique, although if this appeals to you, you can also try this way. I find it better to just place your brush into the powder and just gently nudge, 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 almost like you're kind of bouncing a basketball, but ever so slightly. You only want the tip of your brush to be able to just gently touch the surface of your powder and nudge down just gently, like you're kind of starting to like dig or nudge a little hole. So once again, wiping out on one side and flipping your brush over to nudge, nudge, nudge the powder on your brush. You don't want to drag your brush out and try and get the powder out on the same side of the brush because you're not going to have any monomer there. Now this is not ideal. This basically means that you've just kind of dragged your brush out, perhaps on the same side, gone into the powder, and maybe just laid your brush fairly flat into the powder. What beginners also like to do sometimes is just put their brush straight down to a point to kind of dig into the powder, almost like the tip. You need to kind of hold your brush at a 45-degree angle. This is not what to do. You definitely don't want to put it down and put the tip like a ballerina into the powder. Perfect beads. Consistency is slightly different. You can see there's little lumps kind of on it. It looks like little tiny little golf balls. That means you've got a really nice bead. It's just the way it goes because white is highly pigmented. Once again with the white, really making sure that you're wiping out your brush. So on your practice mat, you can see here you've got 3 different size circles, which is what we're going to practice with your acrylic ratios. So I want you to be able to practice picking up a large bead, placing it down, picking up a medium-sized bead and a smaller bead. When you get to the nail, you're going to have to pick up all different size beads, whether it's putting a small bead down the cuticle or fixing a few little spots or divots on the nail. What you're looking out for is basically as soon as you're putting it down, if it's just flooding and looking like a flat pancake, your ratio is way too wet. These practice mats are quite hard in comparison to a real hand or a nail. You want to be able to place your bead down and it kind of just stay shapely for a little while, like in a little mound, I guess you could say, because you need to be able to work that to be able to have an apex or some shape into your nail. So that way you can kind of press and pat the acrylic down onto the nail plate to create shape. You can see that that small bead is staying in a bit of a mound or a circle there for a while, and then naturally it's going to go down and flatten. But if it flattens out straight away and all your beads are going to join up, it means that it's way too wet. If your consistency is way too wet, your client will have lifting, breakage, you're going to be chasing the acrylic all over the nail, you'll be flooding the cuticle. As you can see how that's nice and circular? Now when I place that bead down, I slightly just push in, just ever so gently, to create the adhesion, and then lift up. You almost want to like bounce off it ever so slightly, like a basketball. You don't want to be squashing it flat, nor do you want to be like pivoting around or sliding and dragging it all over the surface. As you can see, that's what a perfect bead looks like, from large, medium to small.